I'll say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right, we thank you, first and foremost, for the opportunity to interact with each and every one of you individually and all of you together collectively. For each and every time you allow these interactions to take place in this manner, you are allowing there to be created and co-created between us a link, a bridge, a connection between our world, your world, and the co-creation of a new third reality in which we can both interact more readily. We thus then are also allowed to experience through each and every one of you willing to interact with us the gift that you are giving us of allowing us to experience that many more facets of the multidimensional crystal of creation. So we thank you for that gift. We would like to begin this transmission in the following way. We would like to underscore many of the things that we recognize have been said this day by many of the speakers that have been interacting with you. Many of the things that have been discussed are in very many ways aligned with many of the things we have shared with you over many of your human years. The idea of the rotational forces is paramount to our understanding of existence and the nature of the structure of physical reality, along with an underlying tetrahedral template structure. That, in conjunction with the rotational spiral forces, is how physical reality increases itself, expands itself, moves itself forward in these spiral formations. The idea that you have discussed about the idea of the multiplicity of various parallel Earth realities is also in keeping and in alignment with our understanding of the existence of creation, the nature of physical reality. And these kinds of things, this idea does not have to be taken on faith. You can understand this simply as pure physics. The idea is that there is a multitude of parallel physical realities, an infinite number of parallel reality Earths, each of which is representative of a different idea, a different expression of itself, some very similar to each other, some very different. The idea that it is up to you to decide what information is pertinent to you, the idea for you to have discernment about what is true for you, is also something we very strongly concur with, and the entire reason why we deliver information in the way that we are delivering it, to give you the opportunity to decide what is true for you. For that is the only real test of self-empowerment, is if you can make up your own mind and know that you have the free will to determine what kind of a reality you prefer and implement it and apply the information as you see fit. The idea thus then of all these notions that have been shared with you this day are things that we have been speaking of now for quite some time to the people of your planet, and will continue to do so in this way until such time as it is determined that you have said you are collectively ready to interact in different ways, to raise your vibrations up in different ways so as to create a new reality in which many of the things you say you prefer can actually come to pass, can actually manifest physically, can actually come to light. And that you can experience these things that you desire to experience on a day-to-day basis in physical reality, even though it will not be exactly the same physical reality you are experiencing now because of its vibrational difference. As has been often said, you are shifting your frequencies from one reality level to another, and this is so. But you are always shifting. You are shifting now. It is a natural thing that you do. You don't have to wait to shift. You've been shifting. You've been shifting all your lives. This is the way motion is created. This is what happens when you create the illusion of movement. The only way to create the illusion of movement is to actually shift from parallel reality to parallel reality that's slightly different than the reality you were in before. So you're shifting now, you're shifting now, you're shifting now, you're shifting now, you're shifting now. Through constantly shifting parallel realities. The idea is that you don't notice this so much because each new reality you shift to is very similar to the one you were existing in before. The idea of noticing the change is to create there to be a bigger difference between the parallel reality you shift to and the one that you were in before. That's when you know you're shifting. That's when you reveal to yourselves that you're always constantly shifting, and that learning to shift is not something you have to do. You do it automatically. You do it by your own second nature. It is natural to you to shift. This is the nature of how reality works. This is the nature of how change exists. So the question is not, can you shift? The question is, what will you shift to? And how different will you allow the shift to be based on your definitions and your belief systems of what you believe is possible for you? And this is why it is of paramount importance, as has been said this day, for you to really focus on the idea of the frequency, the vibrational frequency, the state of being that you prefer your reality to be, and thus then understand, based on what we have just said about shifting to parallel earth realities, that when you change the vibration of your being, it's not that you change the world. It's that you take yourself, you shift yourself to a parallel earth already existing on the vibratory level you have created within yourself. So it's not about having to force anyone else to change. It's only about you changing and taking yourself to whatever reality, whatever parallel earth is representative of the vibrational frequency you have created within your own state of being. And thus then find yourself surrounded by other beings who already populate that world, but are already more representative of the vibrational frequency you have created yourself to shift to. Is this making some sense to you? All right. The idea here, again, is that this is simple physics. As many of your scientists are beginning to realize, everything exists all at once, all now, in a sense, all here. But you create the illusion of separation by creating differences in vibrational frequency. As each and every one of you goes to your homes this day of your time, after these interactions, many of you may sit down on one of your couches, you may pick up one of your remotes, you may turn on one of your television sets, and your TV set technology is a perfect analogy of what we are talking about. The idea is that you know that at any given moment, there are any number of dozens of television programs that are available to you at that moment that all coexist simultaneously. But you will only get the program that you tune your channel to. This is exactly how physical reality is holographically structured. Whatever vibrational realm you exist on, whatever state of vibrational being you choose to be, is the reality you get. What you put out is what you get back. Simple physics. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Simple physics. That's all this is. It's about creating the appropriate state that you prefer in your own being and allowing reality, in a sense, to reflect back to you the shift you have made in yourself. But you must understand that the opposite is also true. You cannot perceive what you are not the vibration of. If you tune your television set, to use this analogy further, to what you call your channel 2, you will not receive the program on channel 4. You have to tune your set to channel 4 to get that program. Likewise, based on the reality you say you prefer, if you do not allow yourself in your definitions, in your emotions, in your thoughts and actions and behaviors in life to exemplify the vibratory reality that you say you prefer to live in, then you will not be actually capable of perceiving any opportunities that could actually allow you to synchronistically get yourself, shift yourself to that reality. Remember, what you are not the vibration of remains invisible to you. Many times individuals wonder, why can't I do this? Why can't I get there? Why doesn't this happen? It may simply be an issue of that they are on a frequency, operating in a frequency domain that creates certain opportunities to remain invisible to them, unknowable to them, unimaginable to them. They will never even conceive of those ideas, nor recognize them even if they were right in front of their face, because they're not operating on that level. You have to be in the state to see the opportunities and the doorways that actually lead to that reality. This is, again, simple physics. It is a very, very, very simple concept, a very fundamental concept, but we understand that many people on your planet seem to have a lot of difficulty in relating to this idea and creating the kind of changes within themselves that they say they want to make. This all simply comes down to the notion of definitions, how you define your reality, belief systems, basically is what we are talking about. Because you cannot have an actual experiential reality except as is based upon the strongest thing you believe it can be. The strongest way you define your relationship to it and to yourself. All experiences in life are based upon, in your physical reality, in your physical dimension, all experiences are based upon the strongest definition you have bought into about that reality. There have been many, many discussions about the different kinds of realities that your probable futures may hold. And I say this, as has been said, they are simply probable futures. Nothing is set in stone, nothing is chiseled in steel. You have the wherewithal to understand that these are simply a function of the probabilities, that there is no the future. There are many, many, many possible futures. The idea, as we have just explained it, is whatever vibratory realm you exist in, whatever state of being you decide is true for you, will be, generally speaking, the future, so to speak, you will experience. And even if there are other people who think completely oppositely, who believe completely opposite of you, they will have their reality experience as well. The idea, again, is that you don't have to change your world. You simply need to shift to a world that's already representative of the change you wish to experience and allow those that wish to remain in the vibrational world that they have been in to remain there, because that earth will exist as well and does exist right now. All these parallel realities exist right now at the same time, just like the television programs. So, to further stretch the analogy, what this all comes down to by using the analogy of your TV program is to understand it all comes down to transformational vibration, TV. All right? That's what you're dealing with. Transformational vibrations, TV. You decide what TV show you're going to experience. But you have to tune to that channel or you will not be capable of seeing that particular TV show you say you desire to see. Does this make sense? All right. Simple physics. That's all this is. Nothing has to be complicated about this unless, of course, you prefer it to be difficult and complicated, because I will never take that away from you if that's what you want to do. It is up to you to experience the idea of difficulty if you wish to, because that's a valid choice within creation. The idea, however, is you can understand that you don't have to invalidate difficulty as a choice in order to prefer the idea of smooth and easy transitions. Now, we are not saying you will not have challenges, but we are talking about the idea that those challenges can always be met from a positive and constructive vibrational state, and if they are met from that state, then any circumstance and any situation that occurs in your physical reality will always only result ultimately in a positive and constructive effect in your life. Regardless, here's the important point, regardless of anyone else's intention toward you. That's the important point. You cannot be affected in your reality without your permission, without your agreement. So the idea is to get in touch with what you believe is true, what you define as possible, so that you will understand what it is you can and thus don't have to agree to experience in your chosen reality, because it's all by agreement. It's all by permission. No situation, as we have said many times, no situation actually causes anything. It is your definition of your relationship to that situation that allows you to experience what you experience. No situation itself causes pain, strife, or struggle. All circumstances and situations are fundamentally neutral, devoid of any built-in meaning. This is why we have often said, although we understand that this sounds strange in your language, allow us to further explain, the greatest gift you have all been given is that life is meaningless. You have no built-in meaning to anything. That means you have the free will to determine what it will mean to you. And by determining what circumstances mean, what the situations in your life mean, what life means to you, that's what determines what you get out of it, what effect it has experientially upon you. Again, simple physics. What you put out is what you get back. But what's there is an illusion, is a reflection in a sense, and doesn't really contain any substance until you empower it with your own energy to create an effect in your life. So regardless of anyone's intention toward you, if you allow yourself to maintain the vibration of your preference and relate to every circumstance that happens in your life, no matter how it looks, no matter what it is, relate to it knowing that the only thing it can do in your life is serve you in a positive way, then you, regardless of anyone's intention toward you, will ultimately only experience a positive effect and a positive outcome in your life. But you have to know that that's true. You have to behave as if that's true. You have to absolutely have a concrete definition that that is what is true for you. Now, again, this idea of shifting, this idea of vibration, again, all comes down to your definitions, your relationship to things. Many of you attempt to change the things in your lives by changing the outward ideas. And again, this is an illusion. It's what you humans call the cart before the horse. The idea, again by analogy, is that physical reality is very much like one of your glass mirrors. If you look in a glass mirror and you see a reflection, if the expression on your reflection's face is frowning, you don't go over to the mirror and try to make the reflection smile. You know that the only way to get the reflection to smile is to decide to smile first. But when you do, the reflection has no choice but to smile back. Now we understand that physical reality has a kind of density to it, may have a little bit of a space-time lag to it, so that things don't always necessarily instantaneously change to the reflection of the change within you. But that's wherein you give yourself the greatest opportunity to absolutely stand firm on the idea of the change that you decide you have made. Because very often you will test yourselves in the following way. You may say, well, I have changed, but I am not seeing a change in my outer reality, therefore something must be wrong. That's the test. The test is not whether the outside reality has changed to reflect the change you say you've made. The test is whether you respond to the outside reality differently than you did before, even if it still looks the same. That's what tells you you've changed. It's the response that tells you you've changed. Because when you thus then respond to everything from a positive and constructive point of view, then you give your reality the assurance, you give the reflection the assurance that you have changed. And you're not just giving it, as you say, lip service. Because when you base the idea of what happens in your outer reality to determine whether or not you have changed, you're giving your power away to the illusion. Instead of simply knowing that you have changed and behaving like you know it. It's that simple. It has nothing to do with how the outer reality looks. It has to do with how you relate to it, how you respond to it. That's what determines that you have changed. And then, when you hold fast to that assurance, then you can allow your physical reality within the space-time construct to take whatever time it needs to change and reflect back to you the certainty of the change you now know you have made within yourself by the way you now relate to everything in your life differently than you did before. Is this making sense to you? All right. Now this idea of your demarcation time frame, your 2012 time frame, can represent many things and does represent many things within your collective consciousness. And has again been said, the idea is that all these realities, all these potential outcomes are all true. But you decide which one you're going to experience by your vibratory state. That's why state of being is so crucial. The idea thus then, however, to put a different spin, a different idea, an additional idea into your 2012 demarcation time frame is that it is like a threshold, a crossing, and from our perspective, it is like the tipping of a scales. Before that time, the collective energy of your planet has been generally negative. But after that time, you will have finally tipped the scales and the collective energy of your planet will finally slightly be majority-wise positive. So it represents a tipping of the scale, where a sufficient number of individuals are creating the same frequency of the kind of vibrational earth they prefer, so that you can experience a shift to that earth, where from that point forward, the energy being more positive than negative, it can snowball, it can accelerate, it can expand, and continue to move in that direction, in that kind of energy. Your demarcation line of 2012 is also something relevant to us. And in that context, you have, many of you realized, that for quite some time there has been, in a sense, a kind of hands-off policy, a kind of quarantine policy of the Earth in terms of any kind of real, open, direct interaction between ET species and your own. After that time frame, that quarantine will be done. Now, that does not mean that spaceships will be landing everywhere the next day. What it does mean is this. It will no longer be us holding back from open contact. It will be determined solely by whether you are collectively ready for open contact from that point forward. So we pass the ball to you. It's totally in your court, as you say, after 2012, as to when open contact will occur between yourselves and other species such as our civilization. We will no longer be held back by our own philosophies, by our own laws, so to speak. It will be totally in your hands. We will still take that guidance from you as to whether or not you are collectively ready. Now, as we read your collective energy now, and remember, there is no such thing as a prediction of the future. There is only a sensing of the energy that exists at the time the prediction is made. All predictions are of the present, not the future. So when some psychic tells you something about the future, what they're actually doing is sensing the most likely probable energy that exists at the moment they're making the prediction. And if that energy doesn't change, then it has a high degree of probability of manifesting physically. But if it does change, then it'll go down another path. And the prediction, in a sense, by having been made and adding new energy, by making you aware of where the energy is going, can actually act as rendering itself obsolete. So it doesn't mean that the psychic was wrong if it doesn't come to pass. It means you changed the energy that was sensed at the time the prediction was made. However, in this context of open contact, because this is, from our perspective, these kinds of communications are the beginning of contact with your civilization, at least between your civilization and ours. So the idea of open contact, as we read your collective energy now, today, seems to be that the highest degree of probability is that it will occur sometime between your year of 2025 and 2033. Up to that point, there will be many other things happening that will lead up to it. But that's as we read the energy now. Now, you can accelerate that a little bit. You can even delay that a little bit. It's up to you. But in all likelihood, that open contact has a high degree of probability, because if it didn't, it is unlikely we would be talking to you right now. We would be talking to some other Earth where the probability was that high. But we're talking to you. So in a sense, you can use us as a barometer as well for how you're doing. The idea that you know these things are going on, that you know it's all about transforming your energy, the idea that you know you're expanding your consciousness and your spirituality is a barometer that you are, bit by bit, at whatever pace you're comfortable with, bit by bit, shifting yourself every moment to a reality that is more and more, every day, in every way, representative of the reality you prefer. It's all in your hands. It's totally in your control. Always has been, is now, always will be. You are that powerful. And let us address another issue that many humans discuss with us. The idea of Earth being some sort of backward planet. 2 words: nonsense. Understand that even though we understand that there are many difficult things that occur on your planet and many limitations exist, and that many times you often think of yourselves, when you compare yourselves to other civilizations in the cosmos, as some kind of backward kindergartners, nothing could be further from the truth. Understand that it takes a great degree of strength a great degree of power, a great degree of courage to incarnate on a planet with that kind of limitation. We view you as a master class. Start viewing yourselves that way, and you will be astonished at what you can accomplish. You are a master graduating soul class that has found the way to transform great darkness and great limitation into great light. We call this the rubber band analogy. You all know the little thing on your planet that you call the rubber band. You know that when you pick up a rubber band and you want to shoot it in a particular direction, you must pull it back. The farther you pull it back, the farther it will fly in the opposite direction. This is the analogy of limitation and darkness. By allowing yourselves, by agreeing, by choosing to experience this degree of limitation for so many thousands of years, by exploring the idea of transforming that degree of darkness and that degree of limitation, you are pulling the rubber band that far back into darkness, that far back into limitation. So the farther back you go, when you finally let go, that much farther and that much faster will the rubber band fly into the light. That's what you're doing. That's your mechanism. You're building yourself up, all this momentum to transform all that energy in, relatively speaking, a sudden short burst of enlightenment, historically speaking, to fly yourself, to fling yourself, to hurl yourself forward in the reality that you prefer, in the vibrational state that you prefer. So, in that context, you're doing just fine. A little say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. All right. Thank you. All right. We thank each and every one of you individually and all of you together collectively for the co-creation of this interaction this day of your time. Each and every time you offer us an opportunity to interact with you, we get to experience yet that many more ways that creation has of expressing itself. We would like to begin this transmission, as we have titled it, Amplifying First Contact, with suggestions for what you can do to help accelerate, magnify, and amplify the probability of open contact between your civilization and other extraterrestrial civilizations such as our own. This requires action on your part. And if you are excited and passionate about allowing the contact that you are experiencing with us right now to transform into something more physical, so that we may together become something more than either of us individually can become, then by all means allow yourselves to begin to communicate with different organizations on your planet, with different governments on your world, to let them know that you know we exist, that you know many of us are here, and that you are asking, requesting the idea of disclosing the information that many of your governments already know about our existence in whatever manner is appropriate for your world, but that they do allow themselves to speak openly to some degree of the fact that most people on your planet
know that there are extraterrestrial beings that have been with you for generations, thousands of years, that this is not really a secret, even though many people on your planet would like to keep it that way, for fear, for many negative reasons. But you, in your exploration of spirituality, in your exploration of the expansion of your consciousness, in the willingness to become more of who you truly are starting to sense that there is more than just your bodies, more than just your physical minds, and that as you stretch your senses out, you begin to perceive that there are also other consciousnesses all around you in different dimensions who are aware of you and are open to the idea of making contact more solidly, more firmly, if you would only drop all of the assumptions, drop all of the barriers that you create with your belief systems, with any fear-based definitions, and open up to the idea of the existence of other beings more fully, then you will begin with your senses to perceive things that were previously invisible to you, because this is part of the evolution of your species, that you can begin to perceive things you did not know were around you all the time, coming and going. There is a lot of activity right here, right now, all the time, that goes unnoticed by you because your senses are operating on a frequency level that is too low to perceive these things in general. But as you open up, as you follow your passion, as you become more of yourselves, as you expand your idea of what you are as beings, you accelerate the ability of others to communicate with you, because as you become more capable of perceiving them, they will then recognize that you are recognizing them, and they will respond, all of these different beings, and they will interact with you. As you drop the veils between your reality and other realities, as you allow your mind to stretch and overlap and begin to perceive more and more of the other realities that are all right here, overlapping one another, your world will become very different. Space and time will become very flexible, very malleable, and you will be able to experience things that border on the idea of what you typically call magic. For synchronicity will expand, synchronicity will increase, and you will be able to experience exactly what you need, exactly when you need it. This will go hand in hand with more communication from beings on other levels to allow you to know that you are always being given the help that you need. You are always being given the guidance that you ask for, because it's not about asking for more than you're already being given. You are already being given all the help and all the guidance that we can possibly give. So when you ask for a sign, when you ask for assistance, when you ask for help, all you're really doing is asking to open up your own senses to be able to perceive more clearly the help that you're already receiving, because no more help can be given, because you're being given everything that we can give. So it's on your side, your end, to be able to perceive the help you're already being given more clearly. Then you will know that you have always been supported, you have always been assisted, you have never been alone. And that will accelerate the idea of living in a reality where you are truly interacting not only intergalactically, but also interspiritually. You'll begin to break down those barriers between the idea of physical and non-physical reality, and you'll begin to know that you never really lose anyone when they die, that death is just a transition into a different state, and that family is always family, and that you will be able to communicate with them much more clearly in much the same way that you communicate with each other in physical reality. As you continue to expand your senses by acting on your highest passion in life, your world will become very, very different, and you will be able to shift your experience of reality through various versions of different parallel Earths that already exist, allowing yourself to guide yourself, to steer yourself through those different versions, shifting through those different versions, more and more and more, becoming and living and experiencing versions of Earth that are already existing and already more reflective and more representative of the world that you prefer, because they will simply be a reflection of the changes you have made within yourself, within your own energy. You never change the world that you're on. You shift to another version of Earth that is already more representative of the change you have made within yourselves. So by allowing yourselves to know that it is a reality that we exist, that it is a reality that you are surrounded by beings from different dimensions, then you will begin in those actions that you take with that knowledge to bring, in a sense, heaven down to earth, to embody that energy, that state of being within yourself that knows that such things are real, that knows that you are a part of a larger community, that knows you are connected to everything you need to be connected to, and in acting from that state of being in everything that you do in life, bit by bit, at whatever rate is comfortable for you, at whatever pace is relevant for you, you will begin to perceive, as we said, more and more and more and more of the things that are around you right now that may be invisible to you at this moment. So do not be surprised, do not be shocked, do not be scared by the different things you will begin to perceive as your senses become more receptive and more sensitive to looking at different frequencies, different vibrations that are representative of other beings and other levels of reality. Do you understand what we are saying to you? All right. Does that sound exciting to you? I believe you. This is the way to amplify contact in your world. You take the actions that are relevant and representative of a state of being that knows, not believes, not thinks, not guesses, but knows that there are other beings with you, that knows that you are connected to the universe, that knows itself fully as an expression of creation. And from those actions and inspirations that come to you in that state of being, will you then accelerate and amplify contact on all levels, not only outward to the stars, but inwardly into all the levels of your own consciousness. And you will see in the reflections of your outer reality more and more of the things that are representative of that state of being, of that certainty, of that knowingness. We thank you for allowing us to transmit this idea to you this day of your time, and we remind you that this transmission is not just the words that you may be hearing. There is energy being given to you right now, frequencies, vibrations of light and electromagnetic energy that are inviting you, encouraging you to match those frequencies, to help uplift you, raise your vibration, and allow you, in doing so, to experience more of the reality in the way that we do, because we know that you can, and we know that part of you already exists on that level, that higher level. All you need to do is relax into that, and you will be carried on the currents of creation to a higher level, a higher plane, as part of your evolution. If you just do nothing but let go and be yourself, those currents will carry you exactly where, how, and when you need to be carried to find and discover more of yourself and to let go of those things that you now know have nothing at all to do with who you prefer to be. Does that make sense? Yes. All right. Does that sound exciting? Yes. All right. We believe you. In exchange for the gift that you are giving us in allowing us to interact with you in this way, I ask you now, in what way may we be of service to you? You may begin with your questions and dialogue in whatever manner you so desire.
I want to say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. Thank you. We would like to once again extend to each and every one of you individually and all of you together collectively our deep appreciation at the co-creation of this interaction this day of your time. We also extend our deep gratitude for the opportunity to interact with each and every one of you in this way. We would like to begin this transmission this day of your time with what we will title Asasani Stories. And in this transmission, we would like to share with you an Asasani story about Asasani storytellers. In our world, as you know, we are generally telepathic with each other. Our world, were you to visit it, would appear to be very quiet because no one is talking. The idea, thus, of having a telepathic connection, telepathic connection with all the people on our planet may still be expressed in very specifically focused ways. Not everyone is connected to everyone consciously all the time in terms of what information they may need to tap into. It is simply based on the synchronicity of what an individual may need to be telepathically aware of at any given moment that makes them aware and connects them to whatever other individuals or groups in our society are, in a sense, transmitting whatever information they synchronistically need to know at that particular moment. So in other words, not everyone is listening in to everyone else all the time, even though we are always all connected. Thus then the idea, just as on your own world, is that there are specific bits of information that serve specific individuals or groups at specific times and specific timings. And we have, in our world, a group of individuals who have chosen to function in much the same way that we have defined the group that I belong to, which are called first contact specialists, who are engaged in the idea of initiating and creating dialogues in an ongoing manner or in the first contact with certain civilizations that eventually may join our interstellar alliance. There are groups of people that we call the storytellers. The storytellers are those that once contact is made, be it in the manner that we are doing now in this way, or be it in that we have established open contact with the world, and that they have the opportunity to go, in that sense, physically to visit those civilizations. The storytellers are those that will take the information gleaned from the stories of any particular civilization and will thus come back to Asasani with those stories firmly embedded in their minds, and will thus then provide those stories, those points of view, that information to our society as is needed by any individual within our society according to the synchronistic timing that they need that information. So these storytellers perform a very particular function, in a sense, as you would say, of downloading and uploading information from a variety of civilizations. They are, in that sense, very much like the bees on your planet that go and gather honey and allow the hive, in that sense, to partake of what they bring back, sharing and exchanging information from dozens upon dozens of civilizations, learning their stories. For here is the important point. What you also experience on your own world is that information is most often retained most strongly in the form of stories. If you understand what is called story structure, as is related by the storytellers on your own planet in a variety of fashions and forms, you will understand something very important about story and story structure, and why the telling of stories is one of the most powerful ways to transmit and retain information in your world. All the things you remember most about information have been told to you in terms of story structure, and that is why you retain it, because it is in story structure. But why should that be? I will tell you. Thank you. Many people talk about the idea of archetypes on your planet, and they recognize that archetypes are symbols that represent certain facets and aspects of your consciousness. And when you tell a story, many times you use many different kinds of archetypes in the telling of that story to represent certain ideas, certain energies. But the idea is that story structure is itself an archetype. Story structure is embedded in your consciousness, in your physiological personality. When you crystallize your energy into the time-space continuum format, when you construct the physiological mind, the physical ego structure out of the space-time energy, in that sense, when you impose that structure on your consciousness to create physical personality, automatically embedded within that structure is the vibration called story. It is the innate format in which information is communicated most strongly and retained most strongly by your physical mind, by your ego structure. This is why, as children, you can never get enough stories. That's how you learn. Tell me that story, mother, father. Tell me that story again. Tell me that story again. Tell me that story again. The idea being that you always learn something new. You glean something new because it is all there in the story structure. If the story structure of your story matches the story structure that is innately, inherently embedded within your consciousness, then you will pluck all the right chords. The stories that you call lasting, the stories that you call classic, are so because they are matching the story structure in your consciousness. They hit all the right tones, all the right chords, and in that way are automatically embedding themselves through vibration into your consciousness, and you retain them that way. Those stories that do not incorporate the idea of all of the elements of the natural story structure that is automatically archetypally embedded in your consciousness do not resonate with you. You feel, though you do not necessarily always know how to say it, that somehow it didn't quite hit you, that something is missing, that it didn't quite tell the story the way it needed to be told, that you do not identify with it, you do not feel it in your heart, your mind, your spirit, your soul, you do not feel it in your bones. The idea thus is that if you will understand and learn what story structure is and how it is represented archetypally in your consciousness automatically, then when you communicate with others those things that you believe and feel are most importantly representative of who and what you are and what your excitement is all about, finding a way to communicate the idea not in dry facts, but in the idea of telling of the story of who and what you are, telling the story that excites you, always be the way to garner the interest of others, because you will be playing that tune, you will be striking those chords, hitting those harmonics that resonate within their consciousness in the story structure that is already embedded within their personality structure. Learning to communicate with each other in the form of story, be it the idea that it appears that way obviously, or be it that it is more cleverly embedded in the way you communicate, doesn't matter. It doesn't even have to be in the order that you typically think it needs to be, as long as it contains all the elements and strikes the right chords at the right time. The idea is that if you learn to communicate who and what you are in that format, more and more, you will find that your communications will be, in that sense, more clearly heard. Doesn't always mean that individuals must, in that sense, match the vibration of your story. Doesn't mean that your story always has to be compatible with others. But the idea is that you will more clearly explain what the story is that you are living, what the story is that you are all about, what the story is that you desire to experience in your world. Become storytellers, tellers of the story that is your story, the story of your world, the story of your culture, the story of your individuality, the story of your explorations and experiences. Finding, learning, understanding story will allow you to become the kinds of communicators that will begin to spread those stories around your world. Look at the ideas when you share information between nations on your planet. You are telling stories of your culture, stories of your nation, stories of your experience, so that other individuals may be inspired. You are listening to stories from other cultures so that you may be inspired, so that you may inspire each other to learn new stories, to tell new stories, to create new stories, new adventures, new understandings, new experiences, and create your world to be a completely unfolding story of ecstatic exploration. Look even to your language to understand the idea. For even in those stories you have experienced in what you call your space-time framework that you refer to as the past, you refer to it as his story, history. Her story as well, her story, if you wish. But look at you, automatically, instinctively have embedded the word story in the idea of all that you have experienced. It is a story. It is told as a story, and that's why you connect to it, why you remember it, why you relate to it. On our world, the storytellers will go, as we say, to many different civilizations, allowing the idea of the experiences in those civilizations which may be similar to ours to be absorbed, allowing the experiences which may be very different than ours to be absorbed. But in this way, obviously, thus translated into archetypal symbols that are germane for our civilization, in much the same way that in communicating what is going on with our civilization to your civilization, and in communicating what is going on in your civilization to our civilization, there are symbologies that are used, archetypal symbologies, to allow for a translation to occur, because many things that occur in our world and other worlds do not relate to yours. Many things that happen in your world certainly do not relate to other worlds. And so there must always be the translation, which is always part of the telling of the story, is learning how to tell a story in ways that will relate to a number of different ways of translation. Giving the idea of the vibration of an overall story, using the archetypal template, hitting the right chords, will allow you to tell a story in a manner that another person will automatically be capable of translating into the language they understand, because the story structure is universal. So even though you may be utilizing certain archetypal forms that are specific to your culture to tell a story to another culture, if you hit the right chords and tell that story in the proper story structure, the other culture will basically get the understanding, get the gist of your story, even though some of the archetypal symbols within the story may be very foreign or alien to them. But they will understand the essence of the story. And thus they will be capable of telling that story again in a number of different ways, allowing the proper archetypal symbols that are different for each color to take their place in that culture, in whatever culture is listening to the story, so that the translation can be understood. So in all the things that we have said about our culture to you, we are always allowing the translation to occur through the channel's brain with the vocabulary that he was raised to understand, to pick the subjects, pick the words, pick the terms, pick the definitions that most closely relate to the ideas that we are transmitting, because we are transmitting them according to the idea of the story structure that is common to both of our realities, to both of our civilizations, to any structure of consciousness that embeds itself in the idea or understanding of physical reality at all, or can relate to physical reality in any way, shape, or form. They'll understand the idea of story structure. Now, of course, as we have said, in spirit form, in non-physical realities, the idea of time and space is very different. The idea of focus of consciousness is very different. Nevertheless, the idea of story structure to some degree even holds sway there. Because the idea is that they create their own time frame, yes. They may do things in a completely different order than you do, yes. But again, as long as those vibrations are had, as long as those chords are plucked, as long as the resonance of the story structure is there, they will relate to it, because this permeates many different kinds of levels. The idea really is that the entirety of creation is a story. It is embedded in all that is, and all things and all cultures and all dimensions and all beings are a story that all that is telling to itself. You are the story unfolding of all that is. On that scale, you are a story. On your own level, you are a story. On many levels in between, there are stories. There are stories all the way up and down the framework of existence, even to those dimensions that you would consider existing so far below in density, so far below in vibration. There are still stories. They may be heard differently, they may be experienced differently, but there are still stories. And information is still communicated using the story structure of consciousness as it relates to that specific realm or dimension of experience. So become storytellers. Learn what that's all about. On our world, as has been explained in our ancient language, called Sathani, place of the people, place of living light. The Sasani people, living light, is the translation. We understand that our story is different than yours in many ways and similar in other ways, in that we are a hybrid civilization created out of your civilization and another culture from a parallel reality that you have referred to as the Greys, and there being 5 hybrid civilizations of which we are one. The idea thus then is that we have our own stories and different kinds of experiences, some again different and similar to your own, but primarily where we share most strongly is in the concept of the stories of family, because we are connected to you. You are our family in many different ways. And so we communicate to you along the lines of understanding that we are family. We also understand the commonality between us as creators, that we are inventors, we are creators, we are beings who experience the concept of joy and love and ecstasy, just as you can as well, and even more than you do already. But we do not have stories of fear in our world that you may have in your world. We know that fear exists. We know that choice exists, but we simply choose other stories. It is up to you also to learn to choose other stories other than fearful ones, if that is what you prefer. You will never lose your understanding. You will never lose your ability to choose the idea of fear. You will always find actually more and more ability to choose fear. You will always become more aware of the negative side as you expand the positive. Because as you become more of who you are, you become more aware of all possible choices. So the idea is not that fear goes away as a choice. It is simply that the experience of fear is not chosen. That you choose stories that are relevant to the idea of your acknowledgement of yourself as a being of light, Your acknowledgement of yourself as an aspect of creation in the way that resonates most strongly with the vibration of your preference in the moment as you choose to exist, in every moment that you choose to exist from a different perspective of the same moment. Because it is all one moment. It is all now. Every now that you experience is simply the same now from a different point of view. And you tell yourself a different story. And as you tell yourself a story, you create the shifts of different parallel reality experiences that you have. As you tell yourself a story, you create the experience of the shifts that you go through from parallel reality to parallel reality. You are designing your experience based on the story you tell yourself that is most true for you, on the story you relate to most strongly with your belief systems. So if you do not prefer the story you are experiencing, then tell yourselves a different story. Tell me another story, Mother. Tell me another story, Father. Happily ever after. Tell yourself that story. Happily now. Happily ever after. You will have your challenges, for what is a story without challenges? Because that is one of the resonant points of storytelling. There must be a challenge, and there must be transformation. And that is all right. Because in telling yourself the story that way, you will tell yourself the story that allows you to know that you have the ability to transform the challenge into something that expands your story, something that works for you, something that resonates most closely with who it is you believe yourself to be. Tell yourself the story that you know is true for you. Be the storyteller to yourself, just as all that is telling itself the story of all that it is. Through all of you, through all of us, through all beings in creation, it is telling itself the story of who and what it is through all the different perspectives it has created itself to be, through all the aspects, all the pieces, all the stories. An infinite array of stories is all that is made of. It is one giant experience of a multitude, an infinite multitude of stories and perspectives about itself, thus experiencing itself in all the ways, in all the stories that it can. Existence is one big story. Goes on and on and on and never ends. You can decide what aspect of that story you get to experience yourself to be. Tell yourself the story you prefer to be, for you are an unfolding story. Always, 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 and forever. Now then, on our world, we also relate to many different levels of our planet in that sense. What you call the idea of the beings that are like us and the beings that are not. The animal beings, the tree beings, the rock beings, the star beings, the energy beings, all the different kinds of beings, even as many indigenous cultures on your planet relate to these things as people, relate to these realms, these dimensions, these worlds as their own stories, different kinds of stories. But you can share their stories as well. And the story structure will work for them as well. So when you allow yourself to really understand and learn and master story structure, being that it is, again, archetypally embedded in your consciousness, you will realize it is archetypally embedded in the consciousness of all the other kinds of beings on your planet as well. So that when you share information or wish to learn information from them, if you approach them through the idea of tell me a story or let me tell you a story, and learn the idea of how to communicate through story structure, it will be easier for you to understand the stories of many other beings as well. This is the innate template of communication. Story structure is what it's called on your planet. It is the innate template of communication. Let me give you an example also of how this template works in translation in a variety of different ways. Many of you know that when we are conducting these kinds of channelings, these kinds of transmissions to your world, we are engaged with the intelligence of what is called our ships, our computers on the ships, which are self-aware beings and actually are extensions of our own consciousness. A ship, in a sense, a spaceship for us, in a sense, is a crystallized form of our own higher mind. And we are constantly in communion with it, in communicating these ideas to you. The sentence as follows This is the template in the way the ship understands this concept, using story structure. Planetary symbol, linguistic, temporal, archetypal, idiomatic, interactive communication. Planetary symbol, linguistic, temporal, archetypal, interactive, idiomatic communication. That is our ship's way of saying your world is getting smaller every day. Planetary symbol, your world. Linguistic, idiomatic, an idiom from your own language to represent archetypal interactivity in a temporal fashion. Your world, in your language, idiomatically, is getting smaller every day. Interactivity is increasing and accelerating. But that phrase is how our ship translates that story structure, using the template in its most raw form, because that's all the ship needs to do. There are not the nuances of culture for the ship. The ship is just a raw template format of communication of the raw story structure in its most simplistic archetypal formats as far as the ship understands. But this is the process that is going on, and us transmitting these communications through that template of the ship, through the story structure our own society understands, that our ship uses to translate into the idiomatic phrasing that makes sense and resonates within the channel's consciousness to bring up the translations necessary for this communication. So, it gives you a little bit of understanding of the different kinds of translation processes that go on, but still work to tell the story. Even though it may seem very alien and very foreign to you to hear it in the raw template form and not really translate in that form to you, it automatically, using that template, automatically, in a sense, pulls through and from the channel the idea of the appropriate terminologies that are idiomatically representative in your culture to represent what it is we are transmitting from ours. Because if we were to simply transmit it in direct form as we understand it, the communication would be too alien for you to understand. It would not translate into your language in a way that would make sense, as we have just demonstrated with the raw, in a sense, template form. Does that make sense? All right. So this gives you a demonstration of how these translations occur in these transmissions, and why sometimes it takes a little time, in your terms of time, for channeling to be something that is, shall we say, improved upon and practiced, so that bit by bit, as the channels allow themselves to relax into the story structure of their being, we can pluck the necessary chords more quickly, more automatically, more effortlessly, to allow the idea of the template to bring forth from the channels exactly what needs to be said, more and more fluidly and fluently every single time the channel allows such things to come through. Does that make sense? All right. We will in time talk more about many aspects of our culture as it relates to this concept of story. But at this time, in exchange for the gift that you are giving us in sharing these ideas of our story with you, we ask you now, how may we be of service in allowing you to share your stories with us?